Cook County Board President Todd Stroger needs more money, about $740 million, and a $3 billion bond issue to keep debtors from calling, as if the 10.25% sales tax issue wasn't enough. I'm spending an additional $16 in taxes on a $150 iPod purchase. Stroger is saying that funds will be used to repair facilities, reinforce pension funds, and refinance the county's existing debt at lower interest rates, saving taxpayers money. Save money? Interest rates? Can you say Gordon Gekko in the great movie Wall Street? Stay tuned for Cook County funding fireworks on Garrard McClendon Live. Welcome to Garrard McClendon Live. We appreciate you tuning in. President Stroger is at it again. He doesn't want to cut jobs or useless facilities or fat at the top, but he isn't shy when it comes to requesting money from gullible commissioners. He always seems to get that majority vote for journey into the frivolous. Donna Dunnings, the county chief financial officer, also drinks Stroger's Kool-Aid. Quote, "We must as a board take politics out of this." Stroger and his allies say the bond deal is necessary to repair county facilities like jails, hospitals, secure pension funds, settle lawsuits, cover operating shortages, and finance the county's existing debt at a lower interest rate. But I say, let's find some fat to cut in the budget. Joining us now from the Tribune Tower is Commissioner Forrest Claypool. Thanks for coming on Garrard McClendon Live, Commissioner.
Thanks for having me.
You know, Commissioner, here we go again. It's like the child who spends money on toys but asks for something to eat. What's going on here, Commissioner?
Well, something pretty extraordinary. Less than 79 days, actually, and counting since Todd Stroger implemented the largest tax increase in Cook County history, reaping an additional $450 million in tax revenue. He's turned around today and asked the board for hundreds of millions of dollars in borrowing to pay the bills, the bills.
You know, Commissioner, how many times are we going to go back to the well? I'm trying to figure out, you know, is the word responsible outside of his vocabulary? What's going on?
It was a remarkable scene today at the county board. I've never seen anything like it, that to have the arrogance really to come back so quickly after a massive tax increase, which I think most people thought was to be used to pay the bills, and instead say it's not enough, we're going to borrow to pay what their normal operating costs.
Yeah.
And that's just going to get us into further trouble. I mean, I give credit for to the administration for candor. The chief financial officer that you mentioned, Donna Dunnings, is Todd Stroger's cousin. She gave a speech at the City Club earlier this year in which she said the $426 million is not enough. We're coming back for more. Well, I think today they came back for more, but since there's a re-election coming up, they said, well, let's borrow the money to get us through the election, and we'll figure out more taxes after that.
Uh-oh, Forrest Claypool comes out, throws the gloves off, starts boxing like he's in a hockey arena here. He's talking about nepotism and cronyism. Now, why did you have to use the C word, cousin? Why you got to say cousin, man?
Well, it's a family affair at Cook County. You know that. We've seen the Todd Stroger Friends and Family Plan at work, six-figure salaries for friends and cronies. That's part of the problem here. They don't want, as you mentioned at the beginning of your show, they don't want to actually cut the government. They don't want to streamline the bureaucracy or bring in non-tax revenue through technology like other governments have done. They just want to tax and borrow to pay the bills, and there's limits to that ultimately.
You know, I want to go to a clip, Commissioner. It looks like Stroger is continuing with his justification diatribe. So let's cut to this clip. Take a look at it with me.
Sure.
You will see that to pay for capital projects, there's a bond issue. This is how government typically pays for capital projects. And I'm not talking about Cook County. I'm talking about the state. I'm talking about the city of Chicago and the federal government. We all do this. This is nothing new. The only thing new is someone is jailed up and screamed that this is unusual, even though, as you know, Commissioner Claypool had to do a bond issue to do the same thing that we're doing in the Park District. This is part of government. We're not inventing anything.
It's like a puppet on a string. I'm trying to figure out, is there a Wizard of Oz type situation with Todd Stroger? Are there bigger people, I don't know, in the state, you know, around Chicago, that are pulling his strings? It always seems as if he's being fed these words. What do you say about, you know, the comment he just made?
Well, I mean, he's only giving you a part of the story, which politicians like to do. Of course, borrowing for capital improvements is acceptable, but that's only a small part of this bond issue. What I'm not objecting to borrowing for true investments in the future of the county, like equipment and maintaining our buildings. But what he's not telling you is that he's borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars to pay for normal operating expenses. Just like if we at home, if we put all our household expenses, our day-to-day living expenses on a credit card instead of paying for them out of our salary. He's obviously, that's what he's doing here. Pension, good example is pensions. Every year we have to make a contribution to the pension fund in order to fund the retirements of county employees, which are mandated by law. Well, he's borrowing to do that.
Yeah.
Every year we have medical malpractice claims at the hospital. When doctors make mistakes, it adds up to a lot of money every year. There's a contribution that should be made. That's the normal standard business practice to account for that. He wants to borrow that money. And so the question is, where did the $426 million go if you need to borrow for all these normal day-to-day annual expenses?
Absolutely. And here at CLTV, Commissioner, we don't leave any stones unturned. We called Board President, Stroger. We invited him to the show, respectfully said, I'm going to decline, I can't make it. Hopefully he'll call the show later. We called Dunnings, the chief financial officer. I don't think I can make it, traffic's kind of rough. So you always seem to get these excuses over and over. Hold tight, Commissioner Forrest Claypool is with us, and still to come on today's show, your phone calls and the tale of the irresponsible commissioners. Is Todd Stroger the Wizard of Oz? Call me.
The political move is the press conferences that these commissioners have had. Irresponsible. Since I've been appointed chief financial officer, I've tried to act in a very prudent and responsible manner. It's unfortunate that my genetic connection to Todd Stroger is being tied to this. This is the same authority that was being granted to Mr. Glazier. The previous bond ordinance totaled $600 million. I'm asking for $740 million. That difference is made up of the $140 million of the pension bond obligation that those very commissioners did not address in the 2007 budget.
What's going on here?
Politics at its best. And unfortunately, the citizens of Cook County and my reputation as chief financial officer are being held at bay and at stake because of politics.
Oh, politics. Come on, Donna Dunnings. What about cronyism, cousin? What? Oxycontin, Kool-Aid, Tylenol with codeine? When will Cook County start cutting expenses, cut the fat, and look at fiscal responsibility? It's one thing I despise about Democrats. Tax and spend, tax and spend. Forrest Claypool is still here with me, and we're taking your calls. 630-575-TALK, 630-575-TALK. Forrest Claypool, you're a commissioner. It's one thing that's, first of all, go back to the Donna Dunnings quote. Can you share something with me about that?
Well, sure. First of all, I hope you don't hold it against me that I am a Democrat. But
I don't hold it. I
oppose these tax increases.
I don't hold it against you, but it does seem to be this weird combination of we just need a little bit more money all the time.
Well, your columnist John Cass talks about the combine in the Chicago Tribune. Which is bipartisan, and we see that at the county board as well. The Republicans were a big part of this today. It was a Republicans and Democrats together joined to make this happen, and that's often the case over there. So it's a nonpartisan approach to bad government. Yeah. But her statement is just not accurate. I mean, it was today the authorizations was to borrow nearly $4 billion. That's a lot of money. It's a lot more than any previous estimates, and it's the first time that they've sought this sort of blank check to do whatever they want to do with the dollars. And it's the first time I've ever seen a government, at least on the up and up, instead of on a hidden, secretive basis, said we're going to take borrowed money and use it to pay the day-to-day bills, and especially after we just socked you with $500 million in new taxes. Yeah,
we got Commissioner Forrest Claypool with us. Hold tight, Commissioner. I'm going to the phone lines. I'm going to Big Calvin. Calvin, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Oh, hey, thanks a lot for taking my call, Gerard.
Excellent.
I think it's a shame that Todd Stroger wants to do that. If his dad was alive, if it was possible, he probably would turn over in his grave with this type of embarrassment. Also, I'm looking at, too, this is the kind of spending they've been talking about as far as Republicans for years. Now here Todd Stroger talk about $500 million. Now all of a sudden he wants to borrow against that. Gerard, that's wrong, man.
Yeah.
I mean, to the taxpaying people. Mr. Claypool, if you're still on the line, you're part of this board. What would you propose to do to not only stop this, but to rearrange what's going on in city government?
Oh,
in county government.
Calvin, thanks for the call, my man.
Appreciate it, Calvin.
He puts Forrest Claypool on the spot. What would you do?
Well, we've already proposed a lot of things, of course, that have not been accepted. Last year, I sponsored an alternative budget that at one point had the support of a majority of commissioners before some backroom deals were made. That would have cut patronage jobs instead of cutting and closing health care clinics and some of the things that ultimately happened, firing prosecutors and police in Stroger's first budget. But we've also proposed the use of technology to bring in tens of millions of additional fees, not taxes, but user fees by what are called convenience fees, which other governments have done. We've put forth proposals to streamline the bureaucracy, to do any number of things that both cut costs and raise non-tax revenues. All that's ignored because the Stroger administration has really no interest in that. They want to keep the patronage empire going. They want to keep the good jobs for the political supporters, and that's what it's all about. That's what county government's been about for a long time.
Yeah, Commissioner Claypool, I want to go to another clip here with Donna Dunning. She says that it's not Todd's fault, it's not her fault, it's the commissioner's fault. Let's go to the clip.
The bottom line is politics at its best.
And you think you're doing a responsible thing that is sensitive to the taxpayers?
That is what I try to do on a day-to-day basis.
They argue it's unnecessary. We shouldn't be borrowing after the sales tax increase.
Again, these same commissioners that said I shouldn't be borrowing then should not have approved those expenditures in prior budgets.
Man, Commissioner, her hair was right, makeup was right, the earrings were right, she's looking good, but talking loud and saying nothing. Talk to me,
Well,
Commissioner.
we didn't approve these in previous budgets. The bottom line is that, you know, for example, these malpractice lawsuits and costs, those are day-to-day costs. There was never any part of that in the budget. You know, it's just not true. I do want to just add one other thing to the caller Calvin mentioned as another example. And again, the Chicago Tribune reported this last year, that the county has not failed to collect $250 million in bills that are due and owing taxpayers from Medicaid and private insurance companies at the hospitals because they simply didn't bill them because of incompetence and malfeasance. That's an example of just poor management. And until you get rid of the political people who are running a complex medical operation and actually reform the government, that kind of stuff is going to continue to happen. And that's what you need to do, as you pointed out earlier in your show, instead of tax and borrow, borrow and tax. And that's what's been happening.
You know what upsets me with poor management is when you put nepotism and cronyism in the mix, you get people who aren't qualified in the most remote sense doing jobs that may require a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, maybe even more schooling, but you throw somebody in there that's your cousin, you know, and all of a sudden the person's incompetent and things just don't happen. Hold tight, Commissioner Claypool. If you need someone to talk to, call me. Does the county need $750 million? What about a $3 billion bond issue? President Stroger, my number is 630-575-TALK. Todd, give me a call. Your constituents are going to call. They're going to go off on you. Garrard McClendon Live. Drop the remote. Stay with me. We'll be back.
The picture that you all refuse to see, and it obviously going over your head, is that these debts didn't come up yesterday. They came up 2-3 years ago. And eventually somebody has to pay for it. Tom Glazer, who was our last chief financial officer, actually came up with this proposal about the pension. And no, the sales tax, we haven't collected any real sales tax money yet. These have to be paid now.
Todd Stroger, he's in the hot seat again. Welcome back to Garrard McClendon Live. Hey, my guest today, no, that is not Forrest Gump. That's Forrest Claypool saying that Cook County is not a box of bond issues. www.cltv.com/GML is my blog, 630-575-TALK. Talk to me. Forrest Claypool, I'm looking at the commissioners here. There was a 12-4 vote, so who voted with you? Was it Quigley? Was it Parika?
Quigley, Parika, and Suffredin with the 4 votes. At one point, it appeared that we might have been making progress. The Stroger administration actually held 2 recesses during the middle of the meeting and huddled with the Republican commissioners in the back room. I don't know what was said in those meetings. I don't know if they thought that perhaps we'd get some defections, but ultimately we did not. And the taxpayers lost today.
You know, those backdoor, behind-the-room meetings always kind of puzzle me, but I'm going to go to phones. Commissioner Maria, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment, Maria?
Hi, I'm Maria, and I'm an employee of Cook County.
Okay.
And I have a question for the commissioner. I'd like to know if the commissioner is aware that the Family Case Management Program on the Public Health Department has been terminated. And it serves a lot of Hispanics in the northwest suburbs. And I wanted to know if the commissioner was aware of that and that the majority of the workers there are getting displaced and laid off.
Thank you for your call, Maria.
Yes,
Commissioner.
actually, yes, I actually protested that action with a letter to the Health Bureau. It's unfortunate because that program is designed in large part to help at-risk infants or at-risk mothers with children, so those they get the vaccinations and the children don't end up with disabilities as a result of poor medical care. And it seems to me that if those sorts of programs are getting cut, if a dozen neighborhood health clinics were closed under President Stroger, and yet there's $500 million in new revenue, what's going on? What are the priorities? Why are they borrowing? Why are they closing down health services?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense unless all the money's going to what we think it's going for, which is patronage and old-fashioned government waste.
We've got some huge imbalance here. I'm going back to the phone. Sandra, thank you for calling Garrard McClendon Live. What's your comment?
Hello, Gerard.
Hi.
This is Sandra. How are you doing, Commissioner?
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I want to know, I'm very proud of you, Gerard, for speaking your mind and telling the truth. And, Commissioner, I would like to hold you accountable for assisting to please stop this borrowing money to fix something that should have been fixed before. You know, we're going further and further into debt, and the people that are suffering are the underserved, the seniors, and, you know, the homeless people. We've got to do something.
I agree. Thank you. I think this today was a very symbolic day in that respect. It's more of the same, and we can't afford more of the same.
You know, Commissioner, I'm looking at the last caller's question. How can you get 4 or 5 more commissioners to come on the side of justice here?
Well, I'll tell you how. Is my experience in the 6 years I've been on the board, the only time we've won major victories against the system where we've actually blocked a tax increase or cut waste or reformed the government or passed whistleblower legislation, which I did a few years ago, is when the media shines a bright spotlight on the issue and the public themselves as a result gets involved. And that's when politicians who want to be get along, go along sometimes step back and say, oh, you know, the people are paying attention. I better play this one straight. That's how we do things, and that's why it's important that people actually get involved. And it's important. The role the media plays is critical.
Commissioner Forrest Claypool, he's a Democrat, but he's the man. Thanks for coming on Garrard McClendon Live. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Gerard, very much.
Hey, feeling taxed and financed to smithereens, Chicago? Are you mad as all get out? Not gonna take it anymore? Todd Stroger, holla at me. So Commissioner Forrest Claypool, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you. President Todd Stroger respectfully declined our invitation earlier. We look forward to having him on the show to justify his $3.7 billion modest proposal. www.cltv.com/GML is the place to post your blog comments. I read them all, and we may read yours on the air. You can also email me from the website as well. I'm going to a final call. James, holler at me, James.
Hello.
Yes, how are you today?
How you doing, Mr. McClendon? And
excellent.
Mr. I just want to say we are at the brink of the Great Depression. We got a high-paid police commissioner. Murder rates is up. Police shooting is up. That means our taxes are going to be set to the side for police brutality settlements. We got a idiot Todd Stroger there. We got a highest-paid mayor that's in the United States. And homeless and unemployment is so high in energy and gas that we're going to be homeless.
Wow.
We ain't go. I better can feed my family right now
Man.
and pay all my bills. And another thing, now that we just had these floods, that's some more money we got to come up with.
That's right. James, man, thanks for calling
Thank
Garrard
you very
McClendon
much.
Live. James is bringing the truth. I'm going straight to the phones. Marjorie, thank you for joining Garrard McClendon Live. Make it quick.
Hello?
Hi, how are you? What's your comment?
I'm Marjorie from Naperville. Just wanted to let you know that, furthermore, Forrest Claypool should be the one that should have Todd Stroger's job. He should have been the one to win in the first place. And in Chicago, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's why they're in the position that they're in. And it's unfortunate that the poor people are the ones that's suffering. But come time to election, just tell those Chicagoans we have the power to put them in and take them out.
Man, Marjorie, thanks for your comment. Marjorie says from Naperville, Forrest Claypool should be the man. You know, here's the deal. The bottom line tonight is to create a discussion. Todd Stroger refused to be on Garrard McClendon Live. He can come to my show anytime he wants to justify his proposal. But you know what, Chicago? I thank you for joining Garrard McClendon Live because it's about the First Amendment. It's about freedom of speech on this show. What are we going to do, Chicago? Lehman Brothers, AIG, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Merrill Lynch, Daley calling Blagojevich cuckoo, and Todd Stroger with rubber stamp commissioners and a blank checkbook. Hit my blog called Mo Money, Mo Money, Mo Money.
Ask or ask? Donda's rules suit shoes. McClendonReport.com.